Welcome to Ready Player One. This is a crypto podcast that focuses on the Near protocol ecosystem. And Joe, so good to see you. We're back from Nearcon.
Yeah, yeah, back after a long week in Lisbon, but it was awesome and so much great stuff came out of it. And but it's good to be back home.
Absolutely. I mean, not only were there so many projects and like NFT projects and big projects and like sweat and all that we'll get into, but I also got sick when I came back, which I think is what is pretty
I think
common.
most of the conference did.
I think that's just what
So,
conferences are now.
yeah,
It's like you
right,
go, then everybody gets sick.
right.
Man, so let's let's talk about Nearcon 2022 some. So we were both hosted a couple panels.
Yep.
What panels did you host?
One on the metaverse and one on payments.
Yeah, man, that metaverse one was mind blowing. I mean, the
Good.
payment ones too. Like that's what the big takeaway for me from Nearcon was like, there is so much happening, and you can just see these waves of projects coming. They're not at shore yet, but if you're reading like the waves, there's like a whole lot coming, and they're going to be big projects, payment onboarding, using shards, private shards. I mean, all sorts of interesting things.
Yeah, I mean, it felt like there was a lot of, and I don't mean this in like a pejorative way, but like a lot of grown-up projects coming out where people were not just kind of trying to hack and build and trying to see what they could like throw together. There was a ton of projects that were really well thought out. Some were well funded, but some maybe not were just funded yet, but had like actual true business plans and really trying to onboard users and leverage the blockchain in a meaningful way.
Yeah.
And that was really encouraging. I mean, I don't think I saw a bad talk. Like every single panel and talk was excellent. So much interesting stuff happening. Nothing felt like hype and fluff. It all felt like very substantial.
I mean, that a great way to put it. There was no hype and fluff. Like, I don't think I've been in the crypto space for a while. I've never seen this landscape, right? Where we're in like a bear market crypto, but I mean, you look at the macro environment right now. I mean, this isn't a macro podcast, but holy cow, like there is stuff happening in the world that I've never seen.
Sure.
But while that's all happening, we also have all these projects building, and like the thing that blew my mind, I didn't even realize, is a lot of projects in the future are going to be leveraging Near and the blockchain, and the user will never know. It'll all be in the background. And then one day when the user's like, hey, what do I want to take I want to get off this app and go use it somewhere else, they can then get their wallet that has all their info. Like that is like, let's call that like the consumer blockchain. I mean, it's going to be massive.
I mean, you're already seeing it, right? I mean, like the big news that happened at Nearcon was, Sweat and Sweat Economy, actually doing their token generation event. And that alone brought like another like 13 million wallets on board.
Oh yeah, and not only
and
did it went smooth, right?
It was super smooth, and most of those users have no idea what Near is. And that's both good and bad. We can talk about like the pros and cons of some of that stuff, but the fact that Sweat was able to do their thing, airdrop to millions and millions of people, and it didn't disrupt the network, and again, it didn't disrupt the user experience, right? Like the users are still able to go and do what they need to do inside the Sweat app, and it all felt seamless. They don't need to know that it's Near in per se.
No, exactly. And I'm like one business model. So the Sweat business model. So they've got that. They also have like, I think, a validator. There's a Sweat validator. They're really ingrained in the ecosystem. And if they're the first sort of business model for a large app, this could be like a business model recreated across so many different apps.
Sure. I mean, they're an extreme example to some degree because they have like hundreds of million users, but like
100+ million.
But you're right, you're spot on of like just seeing how the approach has been.
Yeah.
There's a lot to learn from that if you're trying to go and build.
Yeah, man. And it's going to be, and that was just like Sweat was just like the large project, but there were so many different projects. Seat Lab was another one that's like Seat Lab NFT, which is a ticketing platform. That's cool. We interviewed them. We just dropped their podcast this week. Another like all happening behind the scenes. Great idea. And then you're right. There weren't as many like people sort of like building and putting stuff together, but I do think that ecosystem is where it is around Near, but it's just not that large, but it's there, but
Oh, I mean, they had
And
a a hackathon during the Nearcon.
yeah,
There was just another one this past week. So there is that stuff, and that culture is there, and that culture is super important to any growing ecosystem. Like you need to have that. You need to have that creativity and that people willing to push the boundaries and try new things
yeah,
and all that type of stuff. But I think the other side of it, though, is that that's not like 90% of what's going on, right? We're
no,
now seeing it where more and more, you know, big business and really, interesting and professional use cases of the blockchain that are coming to fruition, which I think that to me is really, really interesting because
yeah.
that I feel like is an accelerating point to get to, mass adoption.
I agree. Like mass adoption in my head was like, oh, everybody will have a Near wallet because it's got your name on it. I don't think so. I think that's going to be a pretty small portion of people who are like into playing sort of like I sort of look at those people as like sports, right? I really relate a lot of like crypto and sports. Like each crypto is its sports team and people get
Mhm.
fans of it and they go those extra couple steps where they, if you're a fan of like you like the Patriots, right?
Yeah.
So
Yes.
if you like them, you have to like go to a stadium to watch a game. You got to buy a ticket, buy season tickets. If you're a way big fan, you might buy some swag.
Right.
That's just kind of what these NFT projects feel like to me, right? They're sort of like
Yeah.
teams, and that all makes sense. And that's where you need a wallet. But then there's going to be hundreds of millions of people who are on Near and never know it
Yeah.
until they
Yeah.
need to know it. Until they're like, wait, can I pull my info? And it's like, yeah, it's all you here. Here you go. There's your check. There's your key. Like that's
But
wild.
it is, and I think that's where the approach from Near is super interesting too, right? It's like you
Yeah.
don't need to know that the website you're on is built on AWS. That's irrelevant, right? But the biggest difference is that when you want to take away and walk away with your data in Web 2, you can't do that,
No.
or if you can, it's not easy.
Yeah.
And usually you're not really walking away with it. Like, so yeah, it's definitely a different mental model, but we're in the right direction.
Exactly. And you just said something about AWS, and here's kind of what I thought about too. Was there? We interviewed Ilya, and we were walking around and talking about like the chunk validator and what sort of the future of a billion people are using Near. What does that look like, right? Like how does that
Yeah.
work? And it's just a lot of different chunk validators and shards all over, and kind of like being put together. And it made me think about like so AWS. If you build on AWS, you get zero of the profit from AWS.
Right.
You get to use it for what it gives you.
You
So
just
like
pay for it. Yeah. Yeah.
utility.
Yeah. You're just leasing. Yep.
But AWS, no one who builds on it can be like, hey, I would like to be part of AWS now.
Right.
And it made me think when he was talking about the chunk validators, the whole Near thing that blew my mind is like it's basically like an AWS 3 5.0 where like
Hmm.
every project could potentially have a little chunk validator in the future.
Yes. Yeah.
And so you're going to have thousands and thousands of chunk validators that build the entire ecosystem, and each project who has the funds or whatever will just have a chunk validator, which means they get like, I don't know, that's just like so different to me. Talk about
Yeah.
decentralizing profits, right? Like
Right.
AWS is a behemoth. It's worth so much. It's made Jeff Bezos a billion, or 10 times, 100 times over.
Yeah.
That doesn't need to be though. So I love the idea of like everyone being able to be a part of that.
Sure.
And
Sure.
when he explained it, I was like, whoa. That was maybe like one of my biggest mind blown moments where I was like, I did not get that.
Yeah. 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 Absolutely. No, I think people should check out that entire interview. There's so many good, interesting things that Ilya touches on about what is really the vision of Near and what they're really trying to do,
Mm-hmm.
which I think sometimes gets confused of just trying to, because people often just go the easy route of comparing Near to other blockchains.
Yeah.
But there really is a different approach here.
Yeah, it's super cool. So, and at this moment, I'll probably just link to that video. We'll link. But we could kind of pivot to the news a little bit too, because I mean, news is,
Yeah.
speaking of projects having validators, Near Week, which this show is brought to you by, we go check out Near Week. They do weekly news on Near protocol and Aurora. They've launched a validator, which is great.
Yep.
And if you stake with them, you're supporting what they do, and that's another thing. Once everybody has validators, you can stake and support all over.
Yeah, so what I think is really interesting about what Near Week is doing is again, it's another example of a group kind of giving you that example model of like what it could be.
Mm-hmm.
They might not get it perfect, like there's time we'll see like if it all works out the way that they want it to, but this is a nice entrance into seeing like their set up the validator to support their news DAO. And so that way when they can pay out bounties and everything else, it's coming from the validator, which is,
Mm-hmm.
regularly generating revenue. So
Yeah.
just by being up, by running. And so that concept is really interesting. And so you apply that to a DAO, you apply that to your project, how does that all fit in? And right now the C price is prohibitive for a lot of projects, so it is definitely difficult, but it's really great to see them taking this approach.
Yeah. And the thing it got me really excited is, okay, YouTube. I like to equate YouTube because of the way it grew and how you and I were there. I was there at the very beginning of YouTube, and I've been there
Yeah,
through all these years, and I didn't see what it was going to become until it was too late.
sure.
Or not until it's too late, till it is.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I think when new things come into a space, when they really take off is when they give creators, whether it be products, businesses, entertainers,
yeah.
an ability to make profit by being part of it.
Right.
So once YouTube did the ads, it was like there now people will focus their time there, figure it out because they can make a career. Now you have Mr. Beast, who's maybe one of the most prolific creators of all time.
Sure.
So what Near is doing and what Near Week is starting to show is you get a validator. Now you're getting rewards, you're getting money, you're getting value
Yeah.
by being part of the ecosystem.
Right.
And so to me, that just is like, and once I see it and it clicks in my brain, I'm like, other people, it's going to click to them.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
in 3 years from now, it's going to be like, oh yeah, you start a project, you get a chunk validator, now you start doing it, and it just is going to make so much sense. That was the man. It really blew my mind.
Yeah.
That was fun. So Nearcon was really fun. Hope to go again next year. Hope everybody had a good time this year.
Yeah.
Parties were nuts. I'm too old for that, Joe. I was like,
I know, I'm not 25 anymore.
yeah, I'm talking Near Week's party. I was like, this is awesome, but I was like, I gotta go. Like once it was like there's a quick moment when you're in your 40s when you're like, yeah, this is time for
Yeah. The rest of the night goes one of two ways. That that inflection point, right? Like,
yeah,
I'm either gonna go home and be able to get up tomorrow, or I'm
or
gonna
I'm
be out of
done.
commission. Yeah, I'm gonna be out of commission for the next day.
Yeah, I'm spending a whole day in Lisbon doing nothing.
Right.
So Near Week, that's cool with them. Near past 20 million wallets.
Yes.
That's pretty big deal.
It's
I
a really
mean,
nice milestone. Yep.
that's a cool milestone, and it's happening quicker. So I bet in a couple, soon we'll be like, that's 100 million wallets. It's just going to keep flying.
Yep.
And there's going to come that point where it just is like, oh whoa, and it's just going to start cruising. So that was really cool. What is some news you want to jump in on that you've been seeing about?
Yeah. So I think one of the big things we've talked about a bunch here is all of the different sharding parts. Obviously our show is called Who's Sharded, but and we talked about Stake Wars, which we did. But so Nightshade phase 1, which is part of sharding, is essentially out. So out of this recording, the newest update to the protocol has gone to the validators. And so now the validators have to essentially kind of vote on accepting that protocol, which paves the way for all the chunk validators to come online. So there's no reason why I wouldn't pass, but it's just that's the process. Sorry, it's a governance thing.
Yeah.
Again, because it is decentralized, so it's not just something you can just force on everybody.
Mm-hmm.
But that's where we're at, and so this part of chunk validation and everything else is coming to mainnet and fruition, and it's a really exciting step forward.
Absolutely. And Joe, are we allowed to share that you did great in Stake Wars, top 3%, and Ready Layer 1 is going to have a chunk validator?
Yeah. It's quasi public, I guess, knowledge at this point.
So then it'll be another similar thing where Ready Layer 1 has a validator that helps support the content creation and so forth like that. I mean,
right.
It makes sense in a business model.
Yeah, and and I think the exciting thing is really going to be is when we talk about this expansion of Near, we say okay, we just hit 20 million wallets. How fast do we get to 100 million wallets? All these bigger projects coming online, that are really that need that higher bandwidth. Well, to have now the chunk validating coming out, some more of the sharding being released here from phase 1.
Yeah.
We're all in the right direction.
So Proximity wrote a really good Medium article called "Positioned to Become the Leading Order Book Chain." So this is like something interesting to me, Joe, and we should maybe talk about this a little bit because this is we won't go too into details because this gets in a little bit to DeFi and maybe someone who's a bit more of like a hardcore DeFi expert we could talk to someday about this.
Sure.
But basically using orderly network, spin DEX, and tonic DEX, and how this is going to push forward the DeFi on Near substantially.
Mm-hmm.
Is something that's coming out. And I suggest everyone read this Medium article because really, I mean, right now Near has a lot of AMMs, which are automatic market makers, right? On DEXs where you kind of go in and it's like swaps, right? Basically.
Mm-hmm.
But now with the orderly network coming on board and everything, it's a decentralized trading platform. So it's going to be able to step up to like central limit order books, right? Models.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so do you want to explain a little bit about that or?
So yeah, order books are, if you never used one on like a central exchange, so or in the stock market, it allows you to essentially you set your price that you want to enter or to sell at, and so it allows you to start doing things like limit orders, stop loss, all those different things that you would want to be able to do. That's what an order book now allows you to do. Now, to do that though in a decentralized way is really interesting as well, because now you're getting some of the benefits of it being truly decentralized, yet you still can set your prices. And so
Yeah.
right now, if you go to an AMM, you need to do a swap, like you're beholden to whatever that price is right then.
With the liquidity pool and what it is. Yeah.
Exactly. So if you that way, like, and if you're in a rush and you need to swap, then like, well, it is what it is. But if you're willing, if you're okay to be patient and you have a set number in mind, being able to use an order book really changes the whole financial picture for people. And I know for myself it's something that I've been waiting for, because a lot of the stuff that I do, it leads to me like constantly checking prices and things like that, which becomes really a hassle. Where if I could set orders, great, like that's what I want to be able to do.
Yeah. It's just another thing of large projects. As orderly network is massive. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
they're doing major raises and stuff, and they're on other chains as well, right? They're
Mm-hmm.
multi-chain,
Mm-hmm.
and then they're coming in. And another thing I take away from Nearcon is this multi-chain thing. Like Near is
Yeah.
one chain, and a lot of these projects are gonna be multi-chain.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a good time to embrace that. Like I think some people, like this sports analogy, people get really into their chain.
Sure.
I mean, a lot. Like, and it's usually like the earlier a person's in there, the bigger their bag, the more maxi they are. That's kind of like
Of course.
the formula for it. But
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
the greater good of the whole entire ecosystem, I mean, you want like every single ecosystem to be, maybe they're slightly different in what they focus on, but everyone, give people options. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, you definitely, I mean, there's nothing wrong with having options, right? And there's nothing wrong with, wanting to bounce around. And there's going to be some strengths for different chains that do well in different places. And that's okay. Like, and you just need to if you can embrace that and you can leverage that, then your experience as somebody who is a user of these chains would be a lot better than if you're constantly trying to force everything into one single chain.
Agree.
Yeah.
And I was going to ask you, so with this orderly network stuff, they're talking about like a private shard, right? So there's a thing with Near protocol where there's shards, and right now there's 4 shards, right? And like Aurora has its own shard, right? So all of its transaction goes through its one shard until it needs another one.
Mm-hmm.
There's this whole concept of private shards. So those haven't like launched yet, right? They're just like an idea, or are they starting to launch, or do people never even know about it? Like, are they like off-chain metrics? Does that make sense?
Well, so it's not really off chain. So it's not public. So the transactions that are happening within that shard are not all on the main public chain. So you wouldn't see each individual transaction. It's still on the network, and it's still, all the same, the validation process and everything else is still the same.
Mhm.
But those transactions are not writing to the main public chain. I don't know if how exactly they do show up in some form, but they're hidden essentially in a way. I don't know exactly all the technical parts of that just yet, but there is some, like, I don't know if it's all in mainnet, but there are some that are already being built and are actually leveraging it, like the Calamero network and things like that. And what they're great for is like enterprise stuff,
Yeah.
so you don't want all your public, your business things happening there. It will be interesting if people start to move into health and research type of things. You could see that being part of that. So there's a lot of use cases for them. It's just, I don't know enough exactly of how they shield some of that stuff, but it is all on the same network though. It's not like Octopus where it's a separate network.
Okay, cool. Because yeah, I have a feeling private shards could be like huge. Because I think the biggest issue with a lot of blockchain is, and it hits you when you do the first time when you just kind of look up anyone's wallet or like
Right.
look up your own wallet, and you're like, oh, whoa, anyone can see that. Like that's a really weird concept, especially when you come from like a bank. Like no,
Sure.
you can't just go on like a bank website and like look up someone's wallet amount. It's really weird.
Yeah, and then I think, there has to be a balance, right? Of like, you know, where yes, people want to be able to shield stuff, but if you start shielding everything, well, then now like you're kind of going back to like,
Yeah.
like with some of the stuff Web 2, like so it needs to be used like where it makes sense for people, but hopefully it does fill those needs and doesn't become like the default.
Yeah, I was wondering that too. Like, why would anyone not just do a private shard then, right? Like,
Right.
what would make the person not do that,
Right.
or the company, or if they need their own shard?
Right.
But then in a good way, like instead of a company having to make their own blockchain, they could just leverage
Exactly. Yes.
Near, and
Yes.
voila.
One of the things that came out of this past week too is that so a lot of education things, but a really big one is freecodecamp.org. And what's unique about them is they get millions of people going through their different courses. Again, it's free, hence free code camp. And they have actually got a grant from Near Foundation because they actually built a course around Web3 and leveraging Near. So when people want to learn about building on Web3 through free code camp, they'll actually be building on Near, and it's all based around the JavaScript SDK that Near has had. So again, this is all kind of coming together, right? We've talked about the importance of having this JavaScript SDK and leveraging that type of stuff and how that opens the door to a lot more developers. And here you go. One of the larger free education platforms is now using Near as the example to build on Web3 because of that.
Joe, do you think that that's going to bring a lot of coders over to Near that wouldn't go, and like just like what's the long term effects 1 year, 3 years from now of what that is?
Yeah, so I mean, it's one of those things, right, where if I am interested in Web3 and I say, and I, go to one of these different places, I search Google, like I want to learn Web3, I want to learn how to code in crypto, and all of these free programs come up, and they're all leveraging Near because of the JavaScript SDK, and I likely know JavaScript because that's the most popular language in the world right now. Well, like, put two and two together, it's like that's gonna bring a lot more devs there, right? Like that's going to really start to open the door for not just a few people coming in who are maybe kind of interested and or maybe a high level programmer because they're going to leverage Rust, but no, that casual person is now can come over and start building, and maybe they can't build something, truly groundbreaking, but now they're in it, right? And now maybe they start brainstorming, right? It's the more people who are thinking and trying these things, it's just it's a super positive setup.
Yeah, man, it's awesome.
Yeah,
And that's your world. You're hiring people and trying to find people. So I think more people in it, the better.
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's a positive for everyone. Yeah.
Yeah. A whole lot. So, ETH went through the merge. So Aurora's been doing some updates. I think Rainbow Bridge is back on. It was off for a little bit. Now it's back on. So there's a whole lot of updates going on Aurora that I'll put the link below. Just read through them if you're into that, because that's like a lot. We could do a whole show. Maybe we do. Maybe we do a whole Aurora update show, Joe, because like it is
Yeah, they announced a lot during Nearcon.
so much.
Some things were hinted with our interview with Alex that we actually released. He did hint at some of those things. But what was really, I think, so important about what they were highlighting, and again, I think we definitely can go more detail another time, but just that you can continue to really leverage the, the EVM and people who've already built there and already have kind of done that stuff. And now you say, okay, yes, ETH has moved to proof of stake, that's whatever. And so now you say, oh, it's kind of similar, but it's not. The TPS is still very different. That's the speed of the transactions, right? So, and how many transactions can actually go through. So that is still very different, and the cost is still there. There are still gas fees on ETH. Aurora not only has very minimal, they actually have a full program now where there's pretty much none, and they're going to be the first ones to release an option where you'll be able to allow the contract owner to absorb any gas fees, so the end user never sees any gas fees.
I
Uh,
mean,
that's, I mean, not only is it innovative, like that's really thinking about adoption. And that when you say, oh, well, I've already built on an EVM, okay, well now you can actually come to Aurora and really have some interesting benefits that really separate you from actually deploying on ETH.
man, the more we talk, man, we've been doing this show for a while, and we've been in Near and the Aurora ecosystem for a while. Seeing what like is happening, like my mind was so much smaller with what I thought it'd be. Like, it'll be like, and now it's just like all these things, like projects being able to absorb so things. It's just becoming like a place to build on,
Yeah.
and I think it's changing the way people like projects are gonna have to think about business models, and I think that's so good because a thing I wanted to bring up earlier when we were walking around Nearcon, you and I missed it, right? We had missed the Web 2 like prime time to build projects. We were just after it. Like, but 5-10 years before us, that was when like people were building in their garages on Web 2. And like a lot of people who are very successful now who are like industry leaders were coming from that time.
Yep.
Walking around Nearcon, I was like, now is the time, like probably 2 or 3 years. There's like let's call it a 5-year gap right now where
Yeah.
a couple people with a good idea and not a ton of money can start building stuff and start kind of getting it out there, and either having that project succeed, or like so many projects getting that out there, then getting that, building on the next one or the second project. Just
Yeah.
I've just never seen a better time in my lifetime.
It totally is. I mean, it's, it really, it does feel really exciting, even if you're not actually a developer, just somebody who is contributing and being in the space. It is so many opportunities, not just financially, but really to do things that are actually changing, hopefully, the world for the better. And hopefully, helping other people out, but also be able to build something and have an opportunity to maybe make money that you wouldn't have been able to make before. And so it is a fun time.
Totally. And like I hosted a panel at Nearcon on refi, which is regenerative finance, which is about like, I guess the best way to think about it is like projects that help like the world. Like I'm very, that's like a very broad statement, but like, open forest protocol does like reforestation and planting, raise farms is doing farming, things that help the world. But because of this new structure of Web3, they can actually do it towards a profit and not just like a philanthropic thing. And that is where this stuff starts getting really cool to me, because now people have all these ideas and they're learning how to like leverage Web3 and Near to do social good, global good, and also make a profit. And I think once you start getting into that range, it's like, it's mind blowing. That's a cool space in general. Definitely going to do a podcast on that in the future.
Yeah. No, I think that stuff is huge, right?
Huge.
And that is stuff that is not available in both traditional finance or anywhere else today, and it can have really long-term effects.
Exactly. I mean, open forest protocol is like such a sleeve. Like that is one of those big, you're talking about big business, that's a big one. And then I think we could kind of wrap this up by saying like there were some NFTs projects that are growing, right? Like in the world of NFTs, I think it's kind of its own space where like there's sort of a cap on what most projects will become. There's a whole lot of scams, there's a whole lot of sketchy things, but there are a couple legit projects if you can like sift through it.
Yeah.
And one that I saw at Nearcon that I really liked was Be Experience, where they're basically doing like a LinkedIn of Web3. I mean, there's more to it than that, but that's sort of like a single sentence.
Yeah.
And I was really impressed with that project. I thought like, okay, here's a project that's maybe starting with the NFT space, but is elevating into a proper business.
Yeah. I mean,
business is the wrong word. I don't want to say proper business. What's a better, like, you know what I'm trying to say? Like, I don't want to like devalue.
No.
Earlier, I don't want to do that. Like,
yeah, no, but I think what you're getting at is that it is a business in the sense that it is not based on speculation. It is not based on, I guess the degen ethos, which again, like there's nothing wrong with it's just different. It's a different thing, right? Like that's so much again speculative based,
Yeah.
where B experience is really focused on providing opportunities for people to find work and hire people. And it's, like I said, like the LinkedIn of Web3, and they're using NFTs in a little different manner. It's not just about owning the NFT to be part of that project and part of that community. They're going to actually assign some value to and utility to it. And so
Yeah.
that's really interesting. And that's starting to become a little bit of a theme, because I think even like some of the other things that have been coming about for NFTs, right? They are trying to either be part of a game,
Yeah.
or they're building like, okay, this is a specific asset for a metaverse, or even, and like we'll go out. I mean, this week, so like I'm wearing the shirt, but
I'm wearing the
this
sweatpants. I'm wearing the sweatpants.
the Scallies, which started on Near, did do a soul mint. It's gone really well for them, but they're tying it back to things on both chains, and they're tying it back to things on Near specifically. Things that Near does really well that Soul does not do well. They're leveraging some of those things now with hopefully a larger audience through that, and so you're starting to see projects think a little bit more deeply about, what is actually available to me on these chains, and how can I start to really make something unique beyond just, here's another degen community.
Yeah. And that's a really interesting thing, because I think the NFT space in general, the last year, there was a whole lot of scammy stuff. And I think it evolves, like everything evolves. People get smarter. We start to understand the space, and now it's evolving. So now a project that tries to just like pull a meerkats just isn't going to succeed anymore. You know what I mean? Like people are going to be like, no. And so it's good to see that these projects and, Secrets of Skelly Society, an interesting thing about that is that they're pulling the best of each chain. And then that is sort of like an example for other projects.
Yeah,
it's in 5 years. I don't think there's going to be so few maxis, because it'll be like, why would you limit your success by being a maxi?
Yeah, and again, and when you do it for the right reasons, and you do it for a way that you say, hey, I recognize that this chain does this better and this chain does that better, so I'm going to leverage that, versus it trying to be a cash grab at both.
Yes,
it becomes a really interesting proposition.
Totally. And for people listening at this point, we're deep in the podcast now, so thank you. We've got a lot of stuff coming out on Nearcon 2022. We recorded some projects. We check out our TikTok. Joe, our TikTok had a couple good hits on it. And note to self: always post when you're in Portugal. Seemed to go.
It's done well, yeah.
Yeah. So, so we're doing things on that a little highlights of projects, things like that. I mean, blockchain. I mean, talk about it's in the news right now, Joe. It's like there's a lot of cool stuff happening right now, and
absolutely.
We'll keep you posted. We're gonna try to get back into the swing of things post Nearcon and COVID. So we're getting sick.
We certainly have a lot to release upcoming, but we'll keep up with the Who Shardeds, keep you up to date with everything, and go from there.
Yeah, thank you everyone for listening, and talk to you all soon. Talk to you all soon. What am I on a phone call, Joe? I get so weird. I don't know. I'm like, bye. Bye. Subscribe. Ready Layer 1 is provided for educational, informational, and entertainment purposes only, without any express or implied warranty of any kind, including warranties of accuracy, completeness, or fitness for any particular purpose. You should not make any decision, financial, investment, trading, or otherwise based on any of the information presented in this podcast without undertaking independent due diligence and consultation with a professional broker or financial advisory.